So Charles Miller is here this morning. He, of course, is with Scenic City Neurotherapy. And I was sitting here in my head, Charles, trying to think about all the different ways I could begin our conversation today, because off camera, you've already said a mouthful. It's like, I caught a fish this big, some of the vocabulary words you're throwing around. But this is how I think I want to start. We're going to talk about mental health and brain health. And so often those conversations can feel a little bit heavy. And burdensome, and yet you come in with a lot of optimism and hope, and kind of this morning, proof of performance, if you will.
Oh yeah, that's a great way to put it. When we talk about mental health, I think the reason it feels so heavy is because there hasn't been a lot of really excellent options. You know, it's been very much focused on symptom management, which is necessary to an extent. But once we talk about actually getting patients into what we call remission of symptoms, there's not a huge group of people that make it to that finish line.
Right. So you've been doing kind of some studying of your own. You've had these approaches that you take at your office, and by the way, you're one of the leaders in the country, really, when it comes to helping people in this specific way. But when you compare number to number, what I think I heard you say is like a national average hovers around 50 to 60% effective benefit. Yours is at 85%.
Yeah, we're floating between 83 and 85% based on the current data that we've produced from our clinic. So our clinic at Scenic City Neurotherapy, we've been around since 2019, and we've been utilizing treatments like TMS and ketamine infusion therapy according to how the science tells us to use it. And that's really, it seems like that's something that would be easy to follow. There's very clear guidelines. There's a very correct way to give and do these treatments. But what we have found is that nationally people compromise these protocols, I guess is probably the best way to say it, to increase ease of access for the provider themselves or for the patients, which we want to improve access, but not by sacrificing quality of care.
So you're looking, you can imagine being in your science class in high school and the experiments that you would do, right? And so you're looking at not what you're doing. Everyone's using, theoretically, the same treatment, if you will. It's how you're utilizing yours, and that's where you get this great result.
Right. So we, several years ago, put together protocols because there was not just a way to administer specifically ketamine infusion therapy. People were just giving it. They would just give ketamine, and there was no real structure to the process. Then Yale had produced some literature back in the early 2010s that showed that it works best if we give it this way over this amount of time, and when we do that, patients do better. And so we're like, well, okay, we'll do that. Well, some clinics went that way and some clinics didn't. The problem is that there's getting ketamine and there's ketamine infusion therapy. The process is ketamine infusion therapy. So we created a process that maximizes all of using the science that is already out there, we maximize benefit for the patient by focusing specifically on the things that we know have always worked.
So this Yale study that you mentioned, you said some took it and went that way, some didn't. Where did you fall?
We ended up going with what is peer-reviewed and tested and is the standard in science.
So you were telling me something. Charles always teaches me some vocabulary words. So I tried to jot this one down. Your abbreviation is MSKIT?
MSKIT. It's a minimally stimulated form of ketamine infusion therapy. A lot of people, when they hear the term ketamine infusion.
Did you say minimally stimulating? Okay.
Minimally stimulated ketamine infusion therapy. It's an approach that doesn't focus on trying to drive any type of thought or feeling, which is what a lot of clinics take. That's actually shown to decrease the efficacy by almost 30% based on the national average. What we're doing is focusing on neuroplasticity, and that's a big word. What that means is your brain's adaptability, ability to grow new connections in a mappable, measurable way. It's like upgrading the processor in a computer. What we're doing is we're not changing the programs that run every day. We can't optimize the external factors in your day-to-day life. What we do is we help you do the hard better.
Oh, okay.
So run the programs in a more effective way.
Let's do a workout analogy. You know, I love an analogy. So the minimally stimulated versus the people who you say kind of give you so much that it alters how you feel. That's like the treadmill that does the work for you. And then you're the runner actually doing your whole body workout?
Kind of, yeah. It's like, it's not even, it's like you can either do too much or you can do too little. What we find actually is most places, out of convenience for whatever reason, they're leaning on the low side of things. It's like patients need to reach at least this level before they see good. And if we go above this level, we have this therapeutic range where this works. If we go too high, we lose benefit. If we go too low, we lose benefit. But if we keep the patient within this perfect range, which we're able to do with our protocols, we see improvement of greater than 35% over the national average.
Talk about some of the things that you treat, because we're talking to some degree kind of esoterically this morning. Let's get in the trenches.
Okay.
You help with depression, anxiety.
Anxiety, PTSD is a strong responder to ketamine infusion therapy. OCD, even bipolar 1 and 2. A lot of people look at our mental health issues as being purely a chemical imbalance issue. Well, that theory, it doesn't fully encompass the picture. We've learned that there's a pathway issue. So if you think of the chemicals in the brain like serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine that people talk about all the time as the cars, the dendritic pathways, the pathways that we stimulate with our process are the roads that the cars travel on or that stimulate. And so what we're doing, instead of adding cars to the road, we're repairing the roads.
So essentially what you're saying is that your brain, like other parts of your body, can heal.
Yes.
You just have to aid it, not mask it.
Yeah, it's what we're doing is we are taking the brain's very natural neuroprotective, neuroregenerative process and giving it a boost using a very, it's a very natural neuroregenerative process with a very unnatural catalyst.
If 5 people came into the clinic today and all 5 were there for PTSD, let's go with that. Each of those 5 people will experience progression through you in their own way?
Yeah, and a big piece of our program is education for the patient, helping them set adequate expectations. So there's pieces that you can't avoid with this process, meaning that this is physiology. We're going to improve cognition, functionality, emotional regulation in 100% of people that get the treatment. The reason we see patient-reported remission not at 100% but at 85% is because it's expectation. It means that it's like if we gave somebody who didn't have legs, we give them legs. And now they have to learn to walk and use them. It's very much dependent on both pieces.
It's almost a difficult thing, I think, for some people to totally believe because it's so different from what we've grown accustomed to thinking the treatment is. But I know what you like to drive home when you're here is that it is a move forward where you're healing yourself.
And it's not a replacement. It's not a daily medication. It's none of these things. You come into our facility, you do the treatment there. Once we get through stabilization, right now with our numbers, it's 83 to 85% of patients see greater than 50% reduction in depressive symptoms.
That's huge.
That is kind of like the standard we say when a treatment works and is viable. But then there's also then out of that 83 to 85%, 56% no longer qualify for the diagnosis of depression.
I do want to go ahead and show you how to reach out to them. And by the way, if you are a veteran, Charles worked really hard with the VA here in Tennessee, and so they will cover this for you. Don't let costs be something that prevents you from getting the help you need. Scenic City Neurotherapy, that's their website. You can call them 228-0579. Again, he said education is a big part of what they do, so he will want to talk and talk and talk to you before they do anything. I love talking to you.
Thank you for having me.